Before we get into trivia, it's time to throw it over to Mikey P with your Rangers Ed 150, the fastest 150 seconds in the National Hockey Podcast League.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Rangers Ed 150, Mrs. 150 edition. We had some good hockey around the league this week with a couple of teams slow out of the gate starting to put together some win streaks. But before we get to that, we'll start out west in the Pacific Division, where Vegas has cooled off significantly, dropping games to Anaheim, LA, and again last night to the Capitals. Edmonton fired Jay Woodcroft after their disastrous start, with Chris Knobloch taking over coaching duties for the Oilers. The Oilers have won 2 straight, so maybe the coaching change will shake things up enough that McDavid and Draisaitl will get things turned around. Vancouver is still in that number 2 spot, to everyone's surprise. Pettersson is leading the league with 25 points, and with that Ekman-Larson contract off the books, it looks like the Canucks have finally learned how to play a bit of team defense. Honorable mention in this division is without a doubt the Anaheim Ducks, who are in 4th place. And if you thought you were going to be competing for anything but last place in this division, you're lying. In the Central Division, and stop me if you've heard this before, but Dallas and Colorado are in the 1 and 2 spots respectively. Dallas has put together a 4-game win streak with W's over Columbus, Winnipeg, Minnesota, and Arizona, while Colorado struggled a bit last week with losses to Seattle and St. Louis. The Jets have tied the Avs in points with 18, but the Avs have one in hand on Winnipeg. Nashville has gone ice cold since we last spoke, dropping their last 4, and Minnesota has also cooled off, dropping their last 3. Like we said last week, don't expect much from this division outside of the Stars and the Avalanche. Back east in the Atlantic Division, I'm hesitant to say the Panthers are rolling again, but they are on a 5-game win streak. The only reason I hesitate here is that 4 of those 5 wins were against 4 of the worst teams in the league in Columbus, Washington, Chicago, and San Jose. So with that said, these games should all be wins. Credit where credit is due, though. They did beat Carolina 5-2 in that span, so at least they have one quality win in there. Boston is still on top, however, despite dropping 1 to Montreal on Saturday night in overtime. Worth mentioning here that the Bruins, along with the Rangers and Canucks, continue to play absolutely stellar team defense, having surrendered only 30 goals through 15 contests. Compare that to the Leafs and the Lightning, who have surrendered 54 and 59 respectively, and it's no shock that Toronto and Tampa Bay are 4th and 5th in the division. Last mention here is the Buffalo Sabres. They will be without the services of Tage Thompson for quite some time, as he had a rough game against Charlie McAvoy on Tuesday night. He was cut by McAvoy's skate in the first period, and after a brief stint down the tunnel, he came back to the game, then proceeded to block a McAvoy slap shot in the second period, and after a brief return, went down the tunnel for good and will reportedly miss a significant chunk of time with that injury. So a rough night for Tage. Finally, in the Metro Division, with the exception of the Rangers being the only form of consistency here, this division is an absolute mess. Pittsburgh was dead last week, and now they're riding a 5-game win streak and sitting in 4th place. The Capitals were in 5th place and couldn't find the back of the net if their lives depended on it. Now they're riding a 3-game win streak and sit in 2nd place. Turns out the Devils can't win without Jack Hughes, and they dropped all 3 they played last week to fall to 5th, but the Hurricanes are still in 3rd. A slow week this week, but 2 real tough games for the Rangers. The first is Saturday against the Devils, and second on Monday against the Stars. So tune in for both of those affairs, as they're sure to be fantastic games. Until next week, this has been your 150.